When I started doing this with the Toyota for the project over there, I kind of had an idea how everything came apart and all that kind of stuff. This thing I have never messed with. Actually, the interior of this car is in pretty nice shape, but it does have some damage on the outside. So I guess we're going to start tearing the dash out, find out where all this wiring goes, see what I need, what I don't need. Too much fun. Eventually, I'm going to have to tell the whole story here about where this is going, what's going to happen to it. But for now, I've just got to get it out of here, which means pulling all the wiring under the hood, pulling all the wiring behind the dash, and doing pretty much what I did when I pulled that motor for that project. And that means getting it out, getting it on the floor, and making it run so that I know that I took all the stuff I needed to out of the car. And once I get it to run on the floor, then I'll roll something in here and we'll see what this is going to end up going into. But for now, let's have some fun tearing it apart. Drain all the fluids and drop this thing out the bottom. I'm going to set it all the way down on the ground, just put some blocks underneath of it so it's high enough so I can get the 4 bolts out in the corners. I'll have the exhaust manifold disconnected at that time and raise it up. And once again, all the time, trying to make sure I have enough wires to hook it together and make it run again. I did find out that it will not start, won't even attempt to start if the anti-lock brake plug is disconnected. So I'm sure that there's 2 points that check for continuity at least here. I'll have to check some wiring diagrams and figure that one out, but I'm sure we can get by that. Like I said, my goal here is to be able to use the entire wiring harness out of this car to get this motor to run. I'm kind of thinking this is that moment when the engineer said, oh crap, we need to put a battery in there somewhere. That's what it sounds like when it's raining in here. Those are all 4 loose, ready to come out. I've kind of skipped over a lot of what it took to get the wiring harness out of this. Pulling the dash down was a lot of fun. Roll bolts down both ends. Got to take the brake master cylinder out. I put the seats all the way back to have plenty of room to work. Took all the electrical stuff out. Can't move the seats. So I just spliced into the power and the ground on the passenger side seat and ran it back. And I was getting ready to dig under here and drag these wires out from underneath this seat and said, hey, wait a minute, that's a pain in the ass. Why don't I just see what happens when I hook power to that and run it back into the harness? Well, got a little bit of a spark, so that means it's powering something. Not a big spark, so that doesn't, hopefully nothing's gonna melt. And guess what? It works. So, first, a little walk around. This is everything that it takes to make a car move, minus the car. Got the steering wheel, the ignition, ECU, fuel system, electronic goodie boxes, etc., all hooked up with a battery. And because we don't have a body for ground, we have extra cable running around to do some ground. And we are moments away from hitting the key. I have put it in what I believe is park, and it has oil in it. It has fluid in the transmission. The cooling lines have been jumped so that it won't pump fluid out on the floor. There's no coolant in it, so I'll only be able to run it for a moment. But this is just to find out if it will fire. And heck, I'm just going to keep right on rolling here. All right, I'll walk over here. I'm going to touch the key. We should hear a fuel pump, possibly. I don't hear a fuel pump. Oh, one more thing has to be connected. The anti-lock brake system isn't hooked up, and I noticed as I was taking it apart, when that wasn't hooked up, it wouldn't even attempt to start. So, got to figure that out. Be right back. So I wasn't able to keep working on this thing yesterday, so I'm back at it today. What I decided to do was hook the anti-lock brake module back up to it so that I wouldn't have to worry about tracing wires. I don't have a wiring diagram for this thing. So we're going to get ready to see what happens now that I have everything hooked up the way it was in the car. All right, let's hook some power up to it. And again, jumper cables running all over the place, taking the place of the grounds that would be grounded to the chassis of the car. It's in park. Let's see, foot on the brake. And key. I hear fuel pump. And it was in park, good. That's all I need to know. Success.